For lesson 87, we're looking at scale drawing word problems. So imagine, if you would, we're looking at a hard copy of a map, and at the bottom corner we always had that key that indicated us to just how far apart point A and point B would be. Suppose that the key was for every 1 inch that represented 50 miles. You know, we could take that ruler and we could measure from point A to B, and using that key we could then dictate just approximately how far those 2 points, the distance between those two were. So those are the type of problems that we're going to be looking at today. For some of these problems you will not need a chart, but if you're struggling to get it set up, you can always come back to it, or you can use it. It's going to look a lot like our ratio box. On the left column we have the scale, and on the right we have the measure. And then you're going to have two categories that you're looking at. Typically it's going to be the drawing, and then it's going to be the actual figure. So I really only have one example for you, and then we'll have you do some practice problems when you come back the next day. But Mary sketched a scale drawing of her dream garden using 1 inch to represent 2 feet. So for every 1 inch on that drawing, that's going to represent 2 feet of actual garden. And it says, if the drawing of the garden is 8 inches long, how long will Mary's garden be? Well, a lot of you are saying, well, I don't need this chart to be able to solve this one. I know that for every 1 inch I got 2 feet, therefore I need to take 8 times 2 to come up with my 16 feet. And you most certainly would be right. Okay, 16 is our answer. If you don't see it, let me go ahead and walk you through how we use the chart here. So again, on the left we have our scale. On the right we have the measure. Our two categories that we're looking at is the drawing, and we also have the garden. Now notice the difference in our units. The garden is actually going to be in feet, and the drawing is actually in inches. So some of you may be saying, hey, I need to convert these units over. Well, when it comes to scale drawings, we actually don't need to, because when we plug in our values, the scale that they give us is 1 to 2 feet. And as long as we keep the units the same horizontally, we don't have to worry about changing them. Now it says in part A, if the drawing is 8 inches, so there it is, we want to know how long will it be there. Well, we're looking at the ratio of 1 over 2 is equal to 8 over x. Cross multiply, and we know that we get our 16 feet. So I just wanted to point out to you, you don't necessarily have to change the units as long as they stay the same horizontally there. And then lastly, for part B, if Mary's garden is to be 12 feet wide, how wide should it be on the drawing? Well, again, if we wanted to, we could set up the same thing. Scale and measure. We're looking at the drawing. We're also looking at the garden. Again, we don't need to worry about the units because they're all the same. The scale is still the same. For every 1 inch, that's going to represent 2 feet. Now this 12 that they give us, the 12 feet, that's the size of the actual garden. So now that 12 is going to go down below, and we're looking for that X amount that's going to be on the drawing itself. Proportion then, 1/2 is equal to X over 12. Therefore we know that on the drawing it needs to be 6 inches. Only thing I would advise you to do is be careful with your units when you're looking at those. Make sure they make sense. You know, if you're getting the amount for the drawing, it should be in inches. If you go back to part B, this is where we were looking for the actual dimensions for the garden itself. So it was in feet. And I actually have no practice problems for you. We will deal with those when we get back.